All right, I believe we are live for our 22nd episode of the Connect the Dots Web Tech Talk Show. Just to put some things in context, I really love the idea of getting thought leaders together to share their expertise, but to make a really open environment for questions and answers. That's why we do this live on LinkedIn about every 2 weeks. And we talk about the latest in web tech in one form or another. Got the idea from the old Car Guys show where people would call in and ask how to fix their carburetor, and somehow those guys knew how to do it. So we do our best. We have got a great team behind the scenes, Marie and Natalie, that are helping with social channels, and we'll be happy to put any questions into a kind of a chat window that we can see over here, because we really want to be able to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, every episode we have an amazing expert special guest. Today, Andrew Jenkins is joining us from Volterra, which is a social media for enterprise agency. And Andrew, you can probably introduce yourself more eloquently than I can, but it's really nice of you to carve out some time in your day. And we've met a few times before this. Really appreciate it. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you're up to? Oh, you may be on mute. Sorry, I might be able to control that. There we
There we
go.
go. I
Awesome.
guess, yeah. So thank you for already a great introduction. Just to add some more color, so have been running Volterra for 17 years, focused solely on social media. Have taught social media strategies for enterprises at U of T for 10 years, and I wrote a book, Social Media Marketing, Scaling Social Media Across Your Organization.
Awesome. I think you might have mentioned that possibly one of those books could wind up in the hands of someone that asks the first question here today, not to put you on the spot.
That would be great. If happy to send a book along the way to someone who posed the first question. So
That is really awesome. So there's a greater narrative of the show just around talking about the technologies involved in the aspects of what you're doing. But I think you're also pretty on the leading edge, let's say, of how to actually manage social media communications, particularly for larger
mhm.
organizations. And I just thought we might kind of kick things off with sharing a little bit about the difference that involved in all aspects of kind of managing social media for large enterprise organizations versus small.
Well, not just specific to tools, but social itself, or I'll call it, broader initiatives. One of the things in conversations we have with some larger organizations is that the adoption of, like even before AI, the adoption of social, what impeded it was culture. And so there has to be some recognition that that could be a bit of a stumbling block. That You have a situation where you're trying to roll out AI and AI related capabilities, and you're going to have some people that like raise their hand or like I'm keen, I'm game, or I'm already playing with it, outside of work. And then you're gonna have some people in the middle like who are indifferent, like okay, if this is where we're headed, I'll go along with it. And then you're gonna have people that are the laggards who are saying I don't want anything to do with it, leave me alone. You're railroading this through. You're adding to my workload without my permission, and so suddenly, you get a bit of a hairball inside the organization if you're not careful. So what you're seeing more and more is, let's pilot it. Let's pick one or two tools, one or two, I'll call it use cases, and start there. Start small, and some people know the Heath brothers, their book Made to Stick, and some others. And one of the things they talked about in one of their books was looking for the bright spots. So often we're working as an external party. You want to come into an organization and find the people that are already exhibiting the target behavior, the adoption of AI in a safe way, and showcase them, highlight them to the rest of the organization and to other key colleagues, because that is a better catalyst to change than us as external parties coming and saying, you should do this. We
Mhm.
do believe you should do this, but we need validation from internal parties.
And what's Volterra's role on, I guess, the onboarding or the setup of an enterprise social account, and how do you kind of stay with the operations as well?
Sure. So, I'm the former head of social media for the Royal Bank. So I was brought in by the chief brand officer to help set up their operating model. That's one example. So setting the foundation of the operating model, putting the right resources in place, both people and tech stack. And then once that baseline foundation was there, to start rolling, to develop the strategy and start rolling it out. And that's one example. So we will operate on a bit of a spectrum. We'll be advisors. We have some client engagements where they're driving, but we're the co-pilot. And we have the other end of the spectrum where they give us the keys and say, you're running it all with their input. And so everywhere in between. And again, it's, setting the operating model, the foundational elements, tech stack, and then we'll look at organic activity on an ongoing basis, and then layer that on the paid campaigns where appropriate.
A large cohort of the folks that tune into this show now, and even more so after, into the kind of legacy bits, the kind of podcasts and the video that's available later, are CMOs, or kind of more marketing bias folks that often get landed with projects that are slightly outside of the marketing zone. And that could be social because there's technology involved, or let's say it's web development because there's this kind of stuff that is slightly foreign. And if I was, let's say, a CMO of a bank, one of my questions would be like, how do I know what the right thing to say is, and what are some tools or strategies around knowing quickly if I'm wrong?
Well, one of the things that we can help with, and this is not about pitching us or just self-serving, but one thing a bank can do, we'll just use a bank as an example. The general advice we give is listen first. What are people saying that's relevant to you? And that doesn't mean necessarily the mention of you as a brand, but it's like services that you deliver, pain points, anything like that. And then listen first, look for an opportunity to participate in that conversation, and then you can potentially influence that conversation. And so one of the examples I like to give is we were working with in financial services again, but this, not a bank, but with a publicly traded mining company. And they were specialized in battery metals, so like lithium and things like that you find in your iPhone and so on. And so they had come up with some new technology, and they wanted to promote this new technology to the traditional investing audience that invest in mining. But we also, through our listening, we were able to create or to surface an audience that was interested in ESG, clean tech, green tech, and electric vehicles. And so then we were able to put together campaigns for the traditional mining audience and this separate, ESG and clean tech audience. We did a series of paid campaigns over 6 months, and it was the secondary audience that was actually the better performing, more receptive, and that drove, I forget how many million impressions. We increased daily trading volume, or the correlation of the campaigns correlated with increased daily trading volume, 3x increase in share price, and an increase in market cap by $200 million. Mm-hmm. So, but again, it all started with listening first. It wasn't like we have a strategy. It was like, no, we have to do some intelligence first.
Gotcha. And I can't help just due to my own fascination around tooling, when you're talking about listening, which isn't usually the first topic that comes up in a social media discussion. Do you want to share a little bit about some of the tools that you're using?
Sure.
Or kind of some of the strategies around listening and what to do?
So in that case, we were using our tech stack for listening includes a solution called Meltwater. Some people use it for media mentions and like PR and comms. We use the social side of it. And so we used social on that side of it. And then we married it with another solution called Audience with an S, not SE on the end, and rather than CE. And we could take the people that were having the online conversations, predominantly from Twitter because it's the most open platform, and inject it into Audience and do audience segmentation. And then we could also do hashtags and keywords in bios to use Audience to again augment the audience. And then they use AI, because today's conversation is around AI. Meltwater uses AI to help for natural language processing and sentiment analysis and so on. So we take advantage of that. And then Audience uses AI and IBM Watson to do inference around audience segmentation, brand affinities, and things like that. And so that's the approach that we took.
Interesting. We just got a question here from Natalie. Check that out.
Cool.
New feature. Let me read this question on AI tools specifically. Which are you using for social media, and how do you recommend internal enterprise teams integrate to AI kind of in social? This could be a big answer.
Well, let me preface this by saying I'm a bit of a tool nerd. So I mentioned Audience. That's the tool we have used the longest in terms of at Volterra. We started using it when it was in beta 15 years ago. So I tend to find like if something piques my interest, I'll check it out. Sometimes we're often using things in beta. Now, I'm not here to encourage an enterprise to use something in beta for stability, governance, security, all those sorts of things. We as an external agency can play around a little more and keep our clients sort of at bay or in safe setup. But we've kind of compartmentalized the AI tools. So we'll use ChatGPT for brainstorming, ideation, analysis. We will use Claude for writing. I'm going to want to look at, there's a new solution that's kind of a front end or interface for Claude, which is called Lex, but it's built specifically for writing. And then we'll use Perplexity for research. Mm-hmm. So the three predominant ones that people are hearing about, ChatGPT gets all the conversation, but we look at what are we trying to accomplish and where do our needs lie, and then we'll pick the appropriate tools for that. Some secondary tools like Opus Pro we'll use for creating video clips, snackable content from larger video files. Mm-hmm. We use Riverside for my podcast, as well as for subject matter interviews with clients. And then Riverside has AI capabilities to create quick video clips, audiograms, and more.
Okay, super cool. And I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who's taken a moment in their day to join us on LinkedIn and the other channels. And feel free to ask us anything. We've got Andrew Jenkins here, who is an expert on social media for enterprise, topic that I don't get engaged with too often. I think it's really valuable. I was just wondering if I'm taking on a new role in an enterprise, and I just haven't had the experience of onboarding and integrating a social media program. Mm-hmm. Where do you think a good place to start is, or what is the checklist of getting my organization ready to start deploying and understanding where we fit in the social media realm?
The place to start, if you're in a new role at a mid to larger enterprise tasked with social, this is going to sound like a bit like a management consulting answer. I'm not going to say it depends, but I'm going to say that before taking any action about implementation is to do a bit of an audit, a situational analysis. So we want to audit what kind of content do you have and in what form. If the company already has a social presence, what has happened historically? How has it performed? What channels are they on? Are they still active? There are many organizations with dormant social platforms. and this is going to sound really, really basic. Does the company still have access to them? There's a lot of people that set up social accounts and have left the firm, and then access to those social accounts went with them. And so there's a lot of people that, someone who used to work here has the password.
Right. How do you manage all that stuff? Like, do you have any tips for
you
password
can
management even?
well, you can either create standardized emails like social at or social admin at, and the standardized password, but you change the password on a regular basis, and that's kept centrally. One of our clients had kind of like a master list of all the social accounts and emails and passwords. But it was kept centrally, and so that there was no one person that had it, and it was secret. And again, they would refresh that because they were wanted for proper governance and security. But that's one way to deal with it so that you avoid a bit of a dog's breakfast. But there's the other thing is, if depending on the size of the organization and service lines, you may end up with all the social accounts for this business line, and then there's another group. And so when I was at RBC, I was sat in the enterprise social media team, but there were social accounts for insurance, there were social accounts for retail banking, and so sometimes it was really hard to get your arms around just how many social properties were out there and who was managing them, or if they were dormant, who had access to them.
Interesting. And I think when we were talking the other day, we were just commenting in real time about how even the platforms are restructuring their administrative interfaces and how and who gets access, and where do you connect LinkedIn to, or actually it was more about Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and that kind of conglomerate under Meta. How do you keep track of all these things? Is it a spreadsheet, or literally, what do you do?
Well, no, thankfully, in some of the admin areas, you have different tiered administrative rights and permissions. So for a LinkedIn company page, for example, for our clients, we need myself and members of my team will need full admin or master admin access in order to connect their company page to our analytics tools and our scheduling tools. But we are properly governed, properly insured, etc., as appropriate for those sorts of circumstances. And then anyone on my team that doesn't need master admin will have like partial admin access, or like a diminished role, but still enables them to do that kind of thing. So it's just a matter of organizing the hierarchy and making sure there's transparency, is like who will have access to the accounts and for what reason.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's someone moves on, either from the client or from my team, then they're removed.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've even on a smaller scale, we've had situations where someone's left and there's a double authentication to get into the thing, and it connected to the mobile phone. We had to call them up and get all that.
Just as long as you just hope that they leave on good terms. If you have to do a follow-up, because we faced that issue with some clients where someone had moved on, and they didn't leave on good terms, and they were holding a social account sort of hostage.
Interesting. Just thinking about setting up the team, can you talk a little bit about what an enterprise team looks like, just factoring in, there's a few different departments. And what I'm getting at is, as kind of the owner of social, but not the person actually doing it, but building the team out, where do I look to get the right talent? Is the people that are scheduling, are they replying and monitoring? Can you rough out a...
Sure. Well, it depends on this. I use the word depends. What happens, again, it comes back to, so what are you trying to accomplish? Where does your social efforts line up or map to your corporate objectives? And then with that in mind, what do you need to do to work towards those objectives in terms of frequency of posting, what platforms or accounts will you be on, and then some of those platforms will dictate the kind of content you have to produce and how frequently you have to produce it, and who else do you have to involve. And there's people doing the doing, but there's also people that will need to be involved, potentially from an approvals, input, etc. And often social, it comes at they're sort of the caboose on the train, or the front end, the pointy end of the spear. They're not the full marketing strategy. They are the social part of it. So they need a seat at the table, but there may be some decisions being made in other areas that are part of the broader execution. And so we were involved in a campaign around the Olympics. And there was multiple agencies around the table, and so we had to speak to the social piece, and we could either say where and how social could complement it, and where and how social needed could raise some flags about this particular area. It would be grateful if we could have, instead of the waiting for that, can we have the the raw video footage, and we can do some stuff in parallel, things like that. So it's really kind of looking at the scope of things and figuring out where and how social can complement what the organization is choosing to do, and then figuring out the responsibilities for the social team itself. I find it hard. I mean, increasingly you're having people having to become Swiss Army knives. They have to be a video editor, a graphic designer, a writer, and it's hard to find all that. So figuring out what do you need the most of, as in terms of full-time resources, and then potentially augmenting that with some part-time resources. And given today's conversation about AI, this is where it can help people become a bit of a Swiss Army knife. Because now AI, like Opus Pro, can help me become a video editor in simplistic ways.
And how good is it? I haven't checked it out. Is it pretty dialed?
Yeah, because I mean, it's making social video.
Yeah.
So do you want to make a video for a TikTok that has captions, my job title, and my logo on the upper right corner? It's good enough.
Maybe just on that topic, do you have any kind of watch outs, or oh man, we had AI do this thing, and wow, was that ever an unideal outcome? She asks, what are your watch outs or recommendations for content creators who are relying maybe too heavily on AI?
Well, so this it kind of covers social in broad terms as well as AI specifically. I like to describe it as there's automation and there's autopilot. You want to leverage AI to help automating your workflow, to the fact that we can all have an assistant now as opposed to just executives is amazing. It's going to make us all more productive, more efficient, and frankly potentially happier. Because we're not feeling burned out or overwhelmed or what have you. But that's helping us automate some of the processes. But when you go to autopilot, that means you're handing the keys over to something, technology. And unless you have a hand in, I'm going to automate this workflow, but nothing goes out, nothing gets distributed or published without somebody from our team, somebody from the internal part of the organization seeing what goes out. That's all. When you think about all the misfires in social from brands that, so the one example I give is the National Rifle Association posted to Twitter, now X, Happy Friday, Happy Friday shooters, plans for the weekend. That was pre-scheduled, and it posted on a Friday the day after the Colorado shooting in a theater. And they shuttered their account for the weekend and so on. And I'm not here to advocate or protest the NRA. That's just a perfect example of brand backlash. And then someone from, I think it was the Red Cross, mistakenly posted about getting slizzard and having beers at work, and it went out on the corporate account.
Not ideal.
And so you want, so AI is going to help us automate. It's going to help one person do the job of maybe, 1.5, maybe 2 people. So, the needs for reskilling, upskilling are going to be required. But I caution individuals and I caution organizations to just don't relinquish control.
Right. And Janice's kind of final like twist on her comment was, how are you kind of getting all these co-pilots to write stuff without losing your kind of authentic vibe? And like, can you tune them now so well
Yeah.
that they can speak to the nuances of a brand message?
Well, so in Claude itself, you can choose, there's a drop down now in the paid versions about tone, style, bold, relaxed, conversational, things like that. But over and above that, you can do projects, you can give it some custom instructions. We typically we don't, and let me just preface this, we do not allow AI to write original material, meaning from scratch. We don't trust it yet, the quality isn't there. We will use, I'll give an example of a workflow. We will use Perplexity to do research for blogs that we do for our clients. We will use it and maybe ChatGPT to argue counterpoints to the line of thinking that we're having for a blog to strengthen the messaging that we're doing. And then we will write the blogs as original material, but again, leveraging the research that was done. And then we will use something like Claude to come up with social copy derived from the blog that we wrote. But we will instruct Claude to say, maintain the tone and style of the blogs as written. And so that helps to keep the quality control and keep tone and brand messaging and brand style consistent.
Interesting, valuable points, and thanks for sharing that. I just see a message from Rob. He's asking, do you think companies are investing enough in the resourcing to manage their social media accounts and engagement? Is there kind of a rule of thumb maybe for like, how do you know how to scale what size of team and plan for that? Thanks, Rob.
Well, we use an analytics solution called Rival IQ, and they have a resource section that gives you industry benchmarks. So you can look at financial services, beauty, beverage. Now, and these are like sample sets from brands around the world. And so let's say we'll just use financial services as an example. If it's saying a minimum of 3 to 5 posts a week on LinkedIn and a minimum of 3 to 5 posts, and this is organic, then, I mean, that's your sort of your minimum threshold. And it's going to vary for every organization. But my answer is never less. And I'm not saying you have to post 100 times, but I'm sorry, if you're going to post once a month on Facebook or once a month on X or Instagram, when your competition, your peer organizations are publishing 3 to 5 times more than you, and you're expecting the same or more visibility, come on, it's just not going to happen. So you need to be in the game. And the goal is to work smarter rather than harder. So if you can repurpose your content, so like we're talking live today, but this is going to be a recording, and then it's going to be clips, and then it's going to be sound bites. And so how much juice out of the content lemon can I squeeze out of this 30-minute conversation? How many different types of posts? Can it be? Can we turn the transcript into a blog? That kind of thing.
Interesting. And thanks, Eden. She's just giving a shout out for Rival IQ, I think, which is what you mentioned, for some research there as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But it's not, most individual organizations wouldn't buy it. It's really more geared for service providers because it isn't cheap.
Right. We usually get what you pay for out there in the world in general. Wow, time goes by pretty quickly. I just wanted to make sure that I gave your book a call out as well. And do you want to just kind of highlight, grab your book and show it? What is it, the title there? Because I think that's really cool. And I'd love to promote my friends.
It's blatant plug: social media marketing for business, scaling an integrated social media strategy across your organization. So the distinction. So as I mentioned, I taught social media strategy at U of T for 10 years. And the textbook we were using there was Social Media Strategist by Chris Barger, who was heading up social and PR and comms at GM during its bankruptcy restructuring. Fantastic book. The reason it was great was because there are many, many social media marketing books out there, but there, at the time before my book, and this is, again, not to pat myself on the back, the Social Media Strategist by Barger was the only book that did marketing, but as well as advise someone inside a mid to larger enterprise how to navigate the organization to roll out social, to set up an operating model, et cetera, to talk to HR, to talk to legal, about governance, some of the non-sexy parts of social, but the necessary parts that can't be ignored. And so, but that book came out in 2010. And so I wanted to revisit that thinking of talking about marketing, but also talking about the other things that you have to deal with inside mid to large enterprises to make a successful social media rollout. And so my book came out in 2022.
Super cool. And we'll put a link to that in the social channels. And it looks like we're running just about out of time. I am going to see if I think we did a great job at answering most questions. Man, I could chat with you for another hour. It's kind of like once you get rolling, the questions and things to chat about. But we can keep the discussion going on the LinkedIn channels. And
exactly. And yeah, people can find me there. And again, thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Hopefully we can do it again. And thanks to all that joined us.
Thanks. And thank you, Natalie and Marie behind the scenes for making the show come to life. You guys are awesome. And we'll see you in a few weeks, and have a really wonderful afternoon. Thanks again, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Okay. See you later, everyone. Have a good day. I don't know.